put a space after the question mark. I didn't highlight it, but I saw it anyway. Any possibility the Feast of Weeks could have been celebrated for more than one day? It's one of 3 feasts they went to Jerusalem for, and the other 2 were a week long. Well, the sense I get, someone, is that they celebrated, if you want to go, we can look at Leviticus 24, or is it 23? Sorry. Get my numbers off sometimes. I know in the other study I named, which by the way, I'm going to share something with you. I remember I told you about the salvation and the wheat harvest and so forth. Man, did I look for that today. I was really looking for that. I found the website that I believe I saw it on, but I still couldn't find the exact thing. But what I found was that salvation itself actually equals 22, which is pretty interesting. So I'll show you that in a second. But in Leviticus 23, it talks about the appointed festivals. Feast of Weeks is one of them. And it talks about counting off. It's called Feast of Weeks because you count off 7 weeks. It says from the day after the Sabbath, the day you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, count off 7 full weeks. And then you count off 50 days. It says count off 50 days up to the day after the 7th Sabbath. Right? Now, people confuse this and they added like another 50 days, but that's actually not what it's saying from what I can see when I look at this scripture. It's just kind of explaining. It doesn't want you to go to the 49th day. It wants you to go to the 50 day. So it says from the day, count off 7 full weeks. Then it's kind of like reiterating. And the Bible does this a lot. And it says count off 50 days up to the day after the 7th Sabbath. So you just counted to the 7th Sabbath. Well, he wants you to count 50 days to the day after that 7th Sabbath that you just counted. That to me makes sense. And then present an offering of new grain to the Lord. From wherever you live, bring 2 loaves made of 2/10 of ephah of finest flour, baked with yeast, wave offerings to the first fruits to the Lord. Present this with this bread 7 male lambs, each a year old and without defect, 1 young bull and 2 rams. They will be a burnt offering to the Lord, together with their grain offerings and drink offerings, a food offering, and aroma pleasing to the Lord. Then sacrifice 1 male goat for a sin offering and 2 lambs, each a year old, for a fellowship offering. Now, that sounds like a lot of activity for one day, but you'll see the priest is to wave the 2 lambs before the Lord as a wave offering, together with the bread of the first fruits, a sacred offering for the Lord. But if you don't have anything else going on, I mean, you could get this done within a few hours. On that same day, so it says right here, on that same day, you are to proclaim a sacred assembly and do no regular work. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, wherever you live. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest, right? Because God's going to gather those later, right? After the main harvest. Leave them for the poor and for the foreigner residing among you. I am the Lord your God. So to answer your question, I feel the sense I got, and especially I get this sense when Peter is preaching in Acts 2 on Pentecost, that they had kind of been there for a while. The sense I get is that they start it on Passover and they finish it with Shavuot. It's sort of this long kind of, 50-day, really more than 50-day, more like 60-day, kind of a 2-month festival that they do to the Lord. And it kind of makes sense that God puts it together with the first one where they both have to appear before the Lord. It's like God's kind of helping them out. We know you travel from this long distance nation. It's going to be hard to maybe make that travel all the time. So we have you do it in the beginning, in the spring, and then we have you do it again in the fall, at the fall harvest. And that just kind of makes sense. And so that way you're there for Feast of Weeks, and then you just stay through as Jesus did with them. If you think about it, it kind of explains why Jesus stayed for 40 days, because he too was kind of celebrating with them, during that same time that they would it's kind of like a, I don't know if you've ever, trying to think of another festival like that. What comes to my mind is when I was younger, I went to Spain and they have what's called Las Verbenas, which are town festivals, and they go on for like a whole month. And what you do is you kind of go from one town to the next. And when one town finishes their festival for a month, you go on to the next one. Or it might be a week or a couple of weeks, but it would go on for months because they would just kind of link together, So, and they're all right tight together, all these towns. So you would just kind of drive over to the next town and keep partying, So, and you'd have paella, it was a great time. And so anyway, the whole idea of that is you're stretching out the party. And I feel like that's the sense I get here, is that we're sort of stretching out the celebration. We started at Passover, and then we kind of stretch, and that just sort of goes right into Feast of Unleavened Bread, and then that kind of goes right in with First Fruits, and then we let's just keep the party going, and then we get all the way to Shavuot, and that's sort of the end of the spring /summer feast, and then and then we make our way toward the fall feast. That's the sense I get when I look at it and read it, and just kind of makes sense to me that God would do it that way.